Hi, boys and girls. This week's art project, we will be making a pink flamingo in honor of summer being just around the corner. For this project, you're going to need some markers. I've got a paintbrush and water to blend my markers. That part is optional. And some crayons as well as a Sharpie. If you don't have a Sharpie, you can use a black crayon or a regular black marker or even a pen or a pencil. We are going to start off by drawing our flamingo, and we'll start with his body. So we want to draw that right about in the middle of the page, and we'll start there and kind of bring the body down here at the bottom half. So I'm going to start just to the left of the center here a little bit, and I'm going to draw a shape that kind of looks like the letter U, but I'm going to stop right in the middle. It's like half of the letter U. Now I'm going to bring this line at the bottom horizontally over, closer to the edge here. Now I'm going to draw another line that starts about an inch away from the first one, curves over and down to make a point. And this point right here will be our flamingo's tail feathers. So I'll start right about here, an inch away, come over, curve down, and end in a point. So this will be my flamingo's body. I'm going to go ahead and draw his head next. And I'm actually going to start with the top of his head up here near the top of the page, about straight up from that opening there. And I'll draw a line that just curves over to make the top of his head. Next, I'm going to draw the beak, and it's going to kind of curve out and then down. I'm going to make it kind of an L shape. So curve straight out and then come down. And here is where we want the point of the beak. So I'm going to make a point there and come back up, and I'm going to curve over. I actually want this part of the beak to be kind of thick. Next, I'm going to draw the neck and kind of connect it into the head here. So I want to start on the right side of this opening, and I'm going to draw a line that kind of looks like an S shape. It's going to curve up and then out and then back around and touch where the head is here. Now, for the bottom of the head, I'm going to go ahead and draw a curved line, sort of like the top of the head here, that curves under. And I want it to stop right under the other side of the head here. Now, I'm going to follow this S line back around to close up that empty space there. I want to keep these lines about equal distance apart, all the way down. Now I've got my flamingo's shape. I'm going to go ahead and draw a few details on his face. So I'm going to draw two diagonal lines that meet together in a point here on the end of the beak. And then inside the eye here, I'm going to draw, or inside the head here, I'm going to draw an eye. I'm going to start with a small black circle, and I'll fill it in almost all the way. I left a little white dot for a highlight. And then around the black circle, I'm going to draw another black circle. I'm not going to fill that one in. I'm just going to leave it blank. Next, I'm ready to draw my flamingo's wing and kind of the wing feathers too. I'm going to start on this corner, and I'm going to draw a line that curves down and over. Now, for my next line, I'm going to start about midway between this line and the top of the flamingo's back, right about here. And I'll draw another line that curves down and over, and you'll see they just touch here. Now I'm going to keep repeating that line, and it will get lower and lower and lower, almost stair-stepping down to this corner. So each line that I draw will start a little bit lower and end a little bit lower until I get to the end of the flamingo's back. Next, I'm going to draw my flamingo's legs, and I'm going to make it look like my flamingo is standing in the water. So I'm going to draw the first leg coming straight down all the way to the edge of the page. And I'm going to go over it 2 or 3 times so it's not too super skinny. And if you wanted to add a little knee on your flamingo to make it look like he's got a little joint in his leg there, you could add a curved line to the front and the back, right about where you think would be midway down. Now I'm going to make my flamingo standing on one leg, as flamingos do. So I'm going to make a diagonal line out from the top of the leg here. And again, I'm going to go over it to make it a little thicker. Here is where my joint will be. So I'm going to go ahead and make a circle there to make that joint. Now this leg is going to come forward now, and it's going to look almost like a backwards 4 here. Because I'm going to cross over the first leg, and I'm going to thicken that line again. And then this will be the flamingo's foot. So we want to draw kind of some curved lines that come down. I'm going to draw 3. And when I go back to thicken these lines, I'm going to make the ends of them pointy. So I'm only really thickening the top, make his foot shape here. And there's his foot. So now I've got almost all the parts of my flamingo. I'm going to add a couple details to the beak here. I'm going to color just the bottom half of the beak black, but I'm not going to make a straight line halfway. I'm going to leave kind of an uneven edge here so that it just looks like I've kind of colored it unevenly. And then at the top of the beak, I'm going to make a little nostril. Now my flamingo is ready for some color and some background. So I'm going to put away my Sharpie, and I'm going to start by coloring my flamingo with crayon. Now I'm going to use 2 different colors. I'm going to use kind of a pink for my flamingo's body, and then I'm going to use kind of a darker color. You could use either like a red or an orange to kind of create like a shadow on the outside. First, I'm going to fill in my flamingo, and I'm not going to fill in the beak or the eye, but all the other parts of his body, I'm going to fill it in. I'm not coloring as dark as I can, keeping it somewhat light, but I am making sure that I fill it all the way in. And you'll see me coloring along the edge. I always like to color my edges first because I want to make sure that I'm staying inside the lines I drew. Then I can kind of fill in the rest of it a little faster, but I've got a little buffer there, so I don't have to worry about coloring outside of the edges because I've already colored close to the edge. And again, I'm not pushing as hard as I can. I don't want the crayon to be quite as dark as it can be. I want it filled in all the way, but somewhat lightly. So I'm not pushing down really hard. Now, with my darker crayon, it could be an orange or red or even a darker pink, I'm going to add some shadows under the feathers. So now I'm pressing really hard. And I'm going all the way from the tip of the wing here, under all the feathers, to the tip of the tail. I'm also going to add this shadow around the line separating the wing feathers, kind of coloring in between both sides. Now I'm going to start under the flamingo's head, add a shadow there, and all the way down the bottom of the neck, just staying on this bottom side, all the way down to the tip of the tail. Now you can go back and blend it a little by adding kind of a medium value next to that really dark value that you pressed really hard on. Sort of blend your colors a little bit. Now my flamingo looks brighter and also a little bit 3D. I'm going to add kind of a light orange or maybe like a golden color to the top half of the beak. Just fill that in. And you can definitely add a shadow on the bottom of the beak too, if you want it to look more 3D also. Now for my background, I'm going to be using markers. I want a couple of green colors, maybe some cool color, kind of green turquoise colors for the leaves. And then I'm going to need some blues and greens, and maybe even some purples for the water. So all my marker colors that I have out right now are cool colors, blues, greens, and purples. I'm going to start with my water, and I'm going to use one of my markers to draw kind of a water line here. And I'm going to make an upside down bumpy line. And I'm going to go right across the legs here, right across the top of the legs. So it looks like my flamingo is kind of standing in that water. And then using the same marker, I'm going to add more of those bumpy lines, leaving some space between them because I'm going to go back and add some other colors. Now with my other 2 bluish or purple-ish markers, I'm going to go in and add more bumpy lines anywhere there's white space, but I can also overlap my markers too. And you want to make sure that you get the markers pretty dense. You want to fill in a lot of that area because the more marker you have on there, the more color you'll get when you add your water. Now, if you don't have a paintbrush and water, you could use a substitute for your paintbrush. You could use a cotton ball or a makeup sponge, anything that's soft that can get wet. Even a wet paper towel would probably work. And if you don't have those things or don't want to do that, you can just color this in fully instead of leaving the white spaces. Now, for my background, I'm going to use my turquoise and my greens to draw some long curved lines. These are going to be leaves, but I'm going to start by just drawing kind of like the base of the leaves. And some will be longer than others where I have more space, but I'm trying to leave some room between them. Now, on each one of these, I'm going to add diagonal lines to both sides. So on one side, the diagonal lines will be facing one direction. On the other side, they'll be facing the opposite direction. So almost like a V shape there. Now, I'm going to use different colors. I'm going to use my turquoise color here. And the closer together you put the diagonal lines, the more it will look like a leaf, like a tropical leaf. So it looks like our flamingo is kind of standing in a tropical area, like a marsh in Florida or something like that. Now, this marker is almost dried out, but I'm going to try to make it work. You can even alternate different colors of green. And if you want to make some different shaped leaves, you could. I'm going to make these more oval shaped just to switch it up a little bit. And you could even make like some zigzag shapes. Now, anywhere you've got some empty space there, you can always go back and add more leaves, some smaller leaves. You can even make them look like they're kind of coming in off the side of the page. I'm going to try to fill most of my space with these leaves. And then I'm going to go ahead and kind of fill in the rest of the background by using the side of my marker here. I'm just going to make some little marks with my marker that almost kind of look like foliage off in the background. So like there's a whole forest or a whole marsh full of leaves or palm trees behind my flamingo. And you'll notice that I'm making them all kind of go in the same direction. So it really does look like it's kind of off in the background there. And I'm only doing this where I've got empty space. Only above that horizon line where I separated the sky and the water. Now my background is finished except for blending my water. So I'm going to get, or blending my marker, my drawing of my water. So I'm going to get a wet paintbrush and I'm just going to paint over my water line here. And then kind of just make a few swipes across my paper to blend my blues and purples together. And I don't want my lines to completely disappear. So I'm not going to keep rubbing too hard. I'm just going to swipe it enough times that it kind of fills in that white background space. And now my flamingo is finished. And I can't wait to see your finished flamingo too.